I'm going live for a few minutes before this interview. I have an interview at 2, so I'll come off, but I'm trying not to be nervous, so I'm reading to myself. I know with the virus, 18,618 people have lost their lives, while whatever that is in the White House is talking about whether or not we should all go back to work. And I like working from home and the kindness of my current employer in keeping us all, keeping me for another 30 days. But I'm also conscious of the idea that that kindness will come to an end, and living anywhere costs money. So whether it's the Bay Area or Kansas City or LA or Seattle or wherever the next job is that wants me, that I want, um, I know it's I know it's coming. So just to calm my nerves, I'm going to read. The women who sat obediently behind the men and the Hunger Project people seemed eager to communicate. So Twist asked the men for permission to speak with them. The women told her that there was an underground lake below them, beneath the sand. They had seen it in their visions. There was no doubt. But the men wouldn't let them dig for it. Making tribal decisions was not women's work. They could only weave, cook, farm, and care for the children. And the men did not want to waste their energy on visions. Twist and her colleagues believed in the women's vision and eventually persuaded the mullahs to let the women give it a try. The men were not happy, but they let the women begin digging in partnership with the Hunger Project people. A huge shift like this one in a culture of such rigid traditions often begins with desperation, the gateway to the movement of grace. There can be no force. Force is self will externalized. We can only be so beaten down, so thirsty and worried that somehow, like the mullahs, we become willing to receive. Over the next year, the women dug with their hands and small shovels while singing and taking care of one another's children. The men rationed water, drummed, and watched dubiously from a distance as they did their own work. I imagine them muttering or rolling their eyes. The women never gave up. They had seen water in their visions, just as the Apostle Luke writes that our young will have visions and our old will dream dreams and our women will, well, buckle up. They dug deeper and deeper. Deep is so un American now, even radical. We live too often like water skeeters on the surface of the pond, dropping down for a quick bite of insect or email. Deep is the realm of the soul. Deeper and deeper the women dug. The men took over some of their chores. This is not possible, although St. Francis says that after we do what's necessary and then do what's possible, we find ourselves doing the impossible. Men watching the children. The women dug for more than a year, singing and helping take care of one another's kids, the men drumming in the background until they came to an underground lake in the sand, as the women had seen in their visions. This is one of those moments in one of those stories that makes me want to dance around the fire if I had one, to the rhythm of the drums, if only friends would come drum for me in my colorful tribal frocks, because it gets in so deep, as usually only music and poetry can. The mercy of baobab trees giving shade, the hydrating grace of their new lake, their ancient lake there all along. The mercy of the men letting go of their rigid roles. The mercy of sweet water and song in the harsh desert. The mercy of the helpers. The grace of second winds. Maybe mercy and grace belong together like cream and sugar. We might call it the presence of mercy. We might call the presence of mercy soul. some sort of life principle within, behind my eyes, that helps me notice things, be sensitive, feel the kick or salve of love, the energy that makes me me. I don't believe the body and soul are separate while we are alive on earth. The body is how we care for the soul, with protein or manicures and lotion. So it is all part and parcel. The soul, the human heart, feelings, sweat glands, eyes, the basal cell carcinoma they just removed attractively from the tip of your nose is not soul, but part of your story. And our response of compassion is soul, and not poking fun of you is mercy. In rare friendships, we know soul reaches out to soul like deep calling to deep. The psalmist wrote, "Deep calls to deep in the roar of your waterfalls." He was referring to floods of trouble and sorrow, but we know there is opposite and equal reality. What about our deepest, nethermost selves, beneath the part of us that can be sedated, stupid, reactive, observed, that cries out to the truer place in others? The part that hears strange yet familiar notes at a concert, in a voice or a forest, the part that can be as giddy as a child holding a large shell to her ear. There is no need for a pilgrimage to Varanasi. Go to the park. I saw it once on TV to Adam. Adam's connection, his touchstone or talisman, was a handheld Game Boy, which provided repetition, consistency, safety. After the doctor healed the boy of his physical pain and the boy was leaving the office, he handed his Game Boy to the doctor. Something in the boy's soul knew that the doctor was even more far gone and isolated than he was. Deep calling to deep, an autistic soul talking to another autistic soul, the waterfall calling to the cosmos. Now, the people in that Senegalese village have a well and a water system with storage facilities, pumps, and irrigation, not only for their families, but for all 16 villages in the region. There are crops, batik industries, chicken farming. People are learning to read and write and are getting their stories down, which is the best chance to get help for the nearly helpless. I hear your story and respond. CEOs hear stories and respond. Thousands of years ago and all this year, word went out about refugees and many were taken in. It is who we really are, or at least who we began as, and who we can be again by remembering. Pope Francis says the name of God is mercy. Our name was mercy too, until we put it away to become more productive, more admired, and less vulnerable. We tend to forget it's still there. It's our unclaimed selves in the lost and found drawer, access to another frequency, like a tuning fork. It startles you when you hear it. You look up and around and respond. It's part of human nature, the startle reflex. Grace and mercy build on this, on nature. We startle awake. This part of the mystery that the humanity, human bodies are where we experience transcendence and God, restoration, the inclination to serve those who are suffering. We reach out as we are reached out to. This all looks so ordinary that you might miss it. It is so daily. You don't need special music and a Hollywood production and the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. You don't need the Canadian fjords, the Grand Canyon, a newborn baby. although these can be helpful. You don't need to go to Senegal. Immediacy and inspiration can be found in the dairy aisle at Safeway. It probably looks like people saying hello, making eye contact. Oh, letting others go first. Ordinary human daily ways, but moving more slowly. It looks like me with a few free minutes, deciding not to fill something in. Instead, I may close my eyes, drop to a quieter plane, or look up into a tree or the sky. Even a moment's transcendence changes us. Everything is different afterward because we deep dove. We're there in downward, inward, higher places. So we know now. We remember. All right. Now that I've read a little aloud to you, I know my voice works. Chapter 7 is as is. So the next time I read to you, it'll be that chapter from Hallelujah anyway, which has been the greatest first book of the COVID chapter of 2020. Wish me luck on this interview. It's with a biotech firm that is going to do some interesting work with this particular disease. We'll see what happens. Thanks for letting me meeting me here.